today I just want to discuss the things that we need to put into consideration when we're buying used cars, because when you're buying a used car, it means that you want something that's gonna work for you and something that won't lead you to always be in the mechanic. Besides the minor things that we always look out for, such as the service history, how the car looks overall, there's other important things that we need to consider, especially when we have to consider in terms of the cost, to say that if this car has this fault, what will it cost me to actually fix? I mean, if you are at webuycars, for example, yes, the decor report can tell you a bit of a story in terms of the car, but there's other things that you need to actually ask in terms of the car, and go with a mechanic to check for you, or you can use that company view for you in order to assist you to make sure that the car that you're buying is in the mechanical condition that the dealership has already told you. So this first one, I believe that everybody should look out for, whether the car is new or used, because these dealerships now, they're actually starting to sell cars which have an accident history, and by just looking at through our eyes, we can't really notice, because the panel beaters these days, they've become so good to a point that you can't differentiate between a new car and a car that was recently fixed. So the first thing that I would advise anyone is to check the VIN number. So if you go to the windscreen of the car, on the left side at the bottom, there's a number which starts with VIN. It starts with M something. That's the VIN number. So I recently learned now that in South Africa there is a database that was developed around 2019. So that database is to record cars which have accident history, only the cars which have accident history or a salvage title, whether it was a car that was flooded. So you can actually go to that website. I'll just make sure that I pin it whether in the description. So you can actually go to this website, which means that if you go somewhere, whether we buy cars or you are buying a new car, you can just have your phone, you just go to that glass when you are on the outside and you read the VIN number and you plug it on that website. That website, if the car has an accident history, it will show you even the pictures. So this is something that even the dealerships are gonna struggle to hide for you. So I think that website is something that everybody should actually start using, besides all these reports that the dealerships give us, because we know that these are things that can possibly be manipulated. But I'm hoping that if we start using that website as consumers, it actually start to work for us, because surprisingly, when I found out about that website, I had to go and actually check my VIN number just to make sure. So if you check your VIN number and it doesn't show, you don't need to panic. Just know that your car has a clean title, and yeah, that's a positive side. So what I'll say is that if you're at webuycars, for example, and you have a car that you're interested in, go and check that VIN number quickly on that website. And if that car pops up with the same number plate and the pictures, and just make sure you run away from that car, or you just use that to negotiate with them to say that, look, I know the story about this car, but I'm willing to negotiate for you to decrease the price. Yeah, that's something that I thought it would be very useful to know. But there's other things besides that. So these are things that you have to manually check or go with the mechanic. So if you're buying a car, for example, it has 100,000 or plus, check the engine mounting. Make sure that the engine mounting, they are not worn out, because if they are worn out, it can actually affect the car when it's moving. So it can actually make the car to actually cause a lot of noise when it's moving, because the engine mounting are the mountings, so it's things that actually help to hold the engine in place. And if they are worn out, it's either your car is gonna be making noise, or it's gonna turn in a very unusual way, because now the engine is no longer balanced. So that's something that I would check and make sure that the engine mountings, they are not worn out and need to be replaced. So the second thing, I just have a list that I've created. The second thing that I would check it's the suspension of the car, especially for cars which are very expensive, such as Germany cars. You just know that the suspension is going to be something that's going to be very expensive, and there are some cars which have independent suspension, which means that at the back there's a very complex multi-link suspension, which means that if the car hits a pothole on this side, it won't affect the other tire, so it won't make the car to shake. So you have to make sure that the back and the front suspensions, they are still in very good condition, because buying the full suspension is very expensive, and it's just a shame that we can't get suspensions checked when the car is still at the dealership or you want to buy the car, because at these places where they do wheel alignment, they actually charge maybe 80 rand, and you go there with your car and they put it on the machine, then they can check your full suspension. They will tell you, okay, 1 2 3 4 is worn out and you need to go buy, and this might be the potential cost. But when the car is just chilling at the dealership, you are unable to check that. But maybe you can actually ask one of those guys and ask them, is it possible to maybe take you for like a couple of hours, and how much would you charge me to go and check the suspension of this car? Because the last thing you want is to buy a car knowing that it has an issue. You should be able to know that, okay, this is the issue that the car has, and this is how much I might need to cough up on top of the price that I need to spend. So the suspension is very important, and the suspension, it holds your life. You don't want to be trying to turn your car, or it's at high speed now, the steering wheel is vibrating and your car doesn't want to turn, because you can die. So that's the most important thing that I would check now if I'm buying a used car. So the third thing that I would check is the fuel pump. The fuel pump is the one that pumps, hence the name, it pumps fuel from the petrol tank or the diesel tank to the engine. So this is something that in most cars, when they get old, it gets worn out. So another thing that warns out fuel pump, for those who don't know, if you're always driving your car with that light on, which will say your petrol is low. So what happens is that the petrol pump is actually sucking up air, and over a long period of time, because you're always driving your car with petrol that's always so low, you can have issues with petrol pump. So it's always good when you see that your petrol is starting to run out, maybe you have 2 bars or 3 bars left, to refill your petrol, and not always run with the light on, because you might encounter issues with the petrol pump, because some petrol pumps are located in very weird places where the mechanic will need to remove other parts of the car to actually access the petrol pump, and that's gonna cost in terms of labor, because that person needs to be working and actually working on other cars so that they can make more money during the day. But if they're gonna need to work on your car for that whole day, you're gonna need to pay. So petrol pump, very important. So the other thing that I would check is the transmission. I guess in terms of the transmission, it's not really important for a manual, because manuals, they last longer and they're not too complex. But if you're buying other cars which have automatic transmission, whether CVT transmission, which are found in Nissan, Subaru, or the DSG transmission that's found in Audi or VW, I would make sure to check that transmission, because VWs are very notorious in terms of that transmission just wearing out prematurely. So you don't want to buy a car where you're gonna need a transmission rebuild or transmission replacement. I can already tell you're gonna cough up a lot of money. You can cough up to 50,000. I know someone who wants that Audi was from around 2015, so the transmission got worn out prematurely. They wanted around 80,000 from the guy, so he just had to take the car and just park it somewhere under the tree, because the transmission is so expensive and you want the car to move. So I would check and make sure that if I suspect that the car, or you are test driving the car and the transmission is sleeping and you're actually pressing and the car doesn't seem like it's hesitant to go, yeah, I wouldn't take that car. So the other thing that I would check is the engine, whether the timing chain, the gasket cover, there's no oil leaks. So I know in terms of the BMW 3 Series, the one that came out in 2020, and I think they discontinued it around 2022 before the current generation of the 3 Series. I know that that variant of 3 Series has a lot of issues. So don't just see that car when you find it at the dealership and it has 100,000. At 100,000, I know that a car needs to be serviced in terms of the casket cover, and also the seals, they become worn out, and it needs to be, the engine has to be opened, and they need to do a very major service. So if you know about such things and you're buying that car and the mechanic checks and actually tells you that no, this car has a similar issue, I would use that to negotiate. If you already know someone who can do a good service, but it's just that I wouldn't like someone to open the engine. Most times when engines get opened, sometimes the car just gets ruined because there's a lot of things that are actually running in terms of the engine, and the person needs to know what they're doing, otherwise they're gonna really mess up your car. So the other thing that I would check, this is for Audi and VW specifically, is the water pump. Because I mean, you don't want to be driving, going somewhere, and your engine starts to overheat. So the water pump is very important. It's the one that circulates coolant to cool the engine down so that the engine doesn't overheat. So that's something that I would check. So the other one, which is very expensive, it's tires and brakes. Most of us will check tires to check whether the tires have been worn out or not, and we forget to check brakes. Some brakes of some cars are expensive. Some people can cough up to 5,000 just for brake pads, based on the size of the brakes, you know. So while I'm checking the brakes and also the tires, I would also check the rotor. The rotor is the one that metal thing that the brakes actually hold when the car is stopping. I would make sure that that's not worn out, because if it's worn out, when you replace the brakes, you need to also replace the rotor, and the rotor usually gets damaged when you take too long to actually change your brakes, and your brakes are finished and they're even making noise when you're braking, they're squeaking, but you are still driving. So that actually damages the rotor. So when you change the brakes, you're gonna need to also change the rotor. Tires, obviously tires are very expensive, so just make sure that you check the tires. If they run flat, you know that run flats, they get damaged a lot in our country. I honestly think in our country people should just stop driving with run flats, but people love run flats. They don't care about potholes, but I think I wouldn't buy a car with run flats. I think I would change them and put tires which are a bit beefier, because I get inside potholes sometimes by mistake. Sometimes you see it late. You don't want every time when you get in a pothole you have to be changing a tire or your rim is bent, you know. So these are the things that I would check today if I'm buying a used car, because yeah, we all know we're working too hard for this money and you don't want to get ripped off by the dealership. Anyway, thank you for watching. I know it's been long before I uploaded. Yeah, there's just been a lot that is being going on, you know, but yeah, I've managed to actually come here and give you the bit of content, and thank you for those who are still with me, and thank you to the new subscribers, and I hope to gain more subscribers. We're going on a journey to 1,000 subs, and I can't do it alone, and I hope to see you again, same time, same place.